Hey everybody, it's Jay Privman, the national correspondent with Daily Racing Form, joined by Mike Watchmaker. He's the national handicapper with Daily Racing Form. As you know, for the last 21 seasons, we have done the Derby Watch Top 20. And Mike, it's the end of this season for us because next Tuesday, the field for the Kentucky Derby will be drawn. So we decided that for our last Derby Watch video of this year, we would take a look back at the races we thought are the most impactful going towards this year's Kentucky Derby. So, Mike, why don't you start things off by talking about the race that you thought was the most significant, that perhaps being the Arkansas Derby?
Well, Jay, actually, it was a toss-up for me among three different races that could have been the most impactful. But let's begin with the Arkansas Derby. It was the most recent important race, and it was the race won by Omaha Beach, who is going to vie for favoritism with Game Winner. And Omaha Beach was winning his second straight route stakes at Oaklawn Park, and he was away from the rail, which was a good thing to be on that day. And he turned back Improbable, who I was waiting for Improbable to really apply himself and focus on a race, and he certainly did that after acting up in the gate, and he was just second best on this day. And Omaha Beach is absolutely one of the ones in this Derby, no question about it, after his one-length victory over Improbable in the Arkansas Derby.
And we've certainly seen him make tremendous progress over the last couple of starts. He's a horse that touted himself earlier in the year, but really came to fore when he won a division of the Rebel, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and also now most recently the Arkansas Derby. Mike, before we leave this race, let's just talk a little bit about Improbable. I think he's gotten a little bit overlooked in here because by my way of looking at it, yes, he was second best on the day, but he was only beaten a length by a horse who could be the favorite and is going to be no worse than the second choice, I think, for this year's Kentucky Derby. And I think he's starting to get overlooked a little bit.
I think so too, Jay. I mean, he was very uncomfortable in the starting gate, and that could not have helped him. And he ran very well. And he's run well in both of his starts this year. He was going into this year my Derby horse, and I'm not necessarily thrown off of him, even though he's lost both of his starts this year. He took a step forward buyer figure-wise. He got a very solid buyer, higher buyer than many other highly regarded Derby entrants in this Derby. So I think he's a legitimate contender from a betting standpoint. He's liable to be a bit of an overlay in comparison to some of the more fancied favorites in this Derby.
And Improbable added blinkers for the Arkansas Derby. It looks like they're going to come off for the Kentucky Derby. We'll get the official word on that on entry day on Tuesday. Mike, let's now take a look at the Santa Anita Derby. This race was won by Roadster. He defeated his Bob Baffert-trained stablemate Game Winner in that race, but I thought both horses ran very well. What are your thoughts on these two?
I did too, Jay. I thought they both ran winning races. Roadster got the win, and one of the reasons why he got the win by a half a length is because he saved more ground around the first turn than Game Winner did. Game Winner somehow found a way to be four wide in a six-horse field around the first turn, and Game Winner was four wide around the far turn, and Roadster didn't move off the rail until mid to late on the far turn, and Roadster also was more patient with his run. Game Winner made his move in the third quarter mile of the race, which was the second fastest quarter mile of the race. So it was a premature move on his part. And all things considered, with only a half length between them at the finish, Game Winner ran a winning race in this race. And it's that combined with the fact that he was 1-2 favorite in the Santa Anita Derby and 1-2 favorite when he was beaten a nose by Omaha Beach in the Rebel race we're going to talk about in a moment. And also the Baffert factor is one of the reasons why I have him narrowly favored in our Derby Watch over both Omaha Beach and Roadster. But I can really see, I could see Omaha Beach being the favorite. I think it's really very close between these horses.
Yeah, right now you've got Game Winner at 5-1 in both Omaha Beach and Roadster at 6-1. So certainly not much between those three right now. Mike, my way of looking at the Santa Anita Derby, to me, Roadster, it was his only chance to earn points towards the Kentucky Derby, and he did what he had to do to get those points. He was ridden very patiently by Mike Smith and got up in time to win the race. Game Winner, it wasn't his intent for him to get points, and I think that's a large reason why he was kept wide the whole race. It was a means to an end for him, and it was more important for him to get a good race and to just stay out of trouble than it was for them to get cute with him. And I think you'll see him move forward off of that race. Joel Rosario sticks with him, and as we know, Mike Smith, who rode Roadster and Omaha Beach in their final preps, has taken Omaha Beach for the Kentucky Derby. Florent Giraud picks up the mount on Roadster. Well, now let's take a look at one of the divisions of the Rebel Stakes, and this was a very significant race because right now it looks like Omaha Beach and Game Winner are going to vie for favoritism, and this was the race, the only time they've run against each other prior to the Kentucky Derby, and Omaha Beach came out on top. Mike, your thoughts on the performances of these colts that day?
Well, again, solid performances by both colts. Omaha Beach was making his stakes debut, was stretching out off only a maiden sprint win, albeit an explosive maiden sprint win. He made first run on Game Winner, and he was able to prevail. And it was we both thought very highly of Omaha Beach. He was on the Derby watch from the get-go, and this race sort of confirmed our belief that he is indeed a very good horse and a major player. And he got there by a nose ahead of Game Winner. Game Winner was making his first start in 4 months. He had a wider trip. Again, he had a wider trip. And he ran a winning race in defeat. As a matter of fact, Game Winner's 2 seconds this year, I thought were better than any of his wins last year. And I thought, given the fact that Omaha Beach was 4-1 in this race and Game Winner was also 1-2 in this race, and they were a nose apart, is another reason why I think it's going to be very, very tough to determine who the favorite in this Kentucky Derby will be. I mean, as a line maker, one of the things you're supposed to do is identify the favorite. And something as mundane and simple as that is going to be a tough task, I think, in this Derby.
Well, both those horses did run well in that division of the Rebel Stakes. A couple things I like about these, additional things I like about these horses, Mike, in their favor looking towards the Derby. Omaha Beach has shown that he is comfortable on a sloppy track and on a dry track. And as we both know, you can get any of the above on Kentucky Derby Day at Churchill Downs. And I think that's something that's in Omaha Beach's favor. And Game Winner, all he's done is win over the track by virtue of his victory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So they're both at the top of our lists, and deservedly so. They have proven that they are two of the top contenders, if not the two top contenders, for this year's Kentucky Derby. We're going to take one look at one other race, and that was the Wood Memorial. This won by Tacitus, who has really come on this year for trainer Bill Mott, who looks like he's going to have 2 horses in this year's Derby along with Country House. But Mike, your thoughts on the progress Tacitus has made, and by my mind, he really overcame a lot, especially early on in the Wood Memorial with all the trouble to win.
Well, I think Tacitus is one of the ones in this Derby also. I mean, he didn't run against the likes of an Omaha Beach or a Game Winner or an Improbable in the Wood Memorial. In fact, if you want to take a more negative view of Tacitus or Tacitus, you could say that the field he beat in the Wood Memorial wasn't an especially strong one. However, he was absolutely mugged in the early stages. Just a couple of strides out of the gate, and then again into the first turn. And I know after that, the pace set up for him and all of that. But still, he was the only one, and there were several horses that were severely impeded in the early stages. He was the only one to do any real running, and he did some real running. He did more than real running. He won the race. And he also gave the very strong impression of being a horse that's going to relish as much distance as you could throw at him. I mean, it seemed like he was just powering away from these horses at the end of that race, and while still having something in reserve. I think the 1.25 mile distance of the Derby is really, really going to suit him. Definitely
so. He looks like the longer the better for that colt, and it really is shaping up as a terrific Derby, as we've seen by the videos that we've just watched. These horses are really starting to peak at the right time, which is what you want as you're approaching the first Saturday in May. Well, that's going to wrap things up for our Derby Watch videos preceding this year's Kentucky Derby. But as you know, here at DRF.com, we'll have plenty of video support leading up to the Kentucky Derby next week from Churchill Downs. Mike Welsh is already on the scene there, and he'll have daily workout reports. I'll be heading there later this week as well for some on-site reporting too. Thanks for watching us throughout this spring. For Mike Watchmaker, I'm Jay Privman. Have a good Derby.